Levin TV and the host of Life, Liberty, and Levin right here on the Fox News channel. As a matter of fact, this weekend, Governor Palin is going to be your guest on the show. I've always liked Governor Palin, and we haven't heard from her in a while. I look forward to watching, Mark. All right, so the big question now is what the president needs to do. Apparently, the president's lawyers are negotiating with the special counsel over the idea that the president would speak with Robert Mueller. The president himself is like, I have nothing to hide, I'd speak with him. But if there's no underlying crime, if collusion is not a crime, and the president has the right to fire Comey or anybody else, and even Comey admitted as much, then the question is, if they want to get into the president's mindset, your thoughts can't represent a crime, in my opinion. You're the constitutional expert. Would you allow, if the president was your client, would you allow him to speak to Robert Mueller?
No. And let me tell you, I wouldn't allow him to speak for his sake and for the sake of the office of the presidency, because this is a rogue prosecutor who's investigating nothing. Do you understand that? He's investigating nothing. There's no underlying crime. When he got his appointment by the Deputy Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General did not provide any basis for the appointment. That is, he didn't say, here are the criminal statutes I want you to investigate, because there aren't any. I want to make a point that I don't believe anybody else has made, and this is very, very important for the president and for the president's lawyers and the nation. The official position of the United States Department of Justice under a Democrat administration and a Republican administration was set out by the Office of Legal Counsel, that's the constitutional office within the Department of Justice, in two memoranda. And these memoranda say that a president of the United States cannot be indicted while he's in office. Cannot be indicted while he's in office. So he can't be a criminal target. The president of the United States can't be a criminal target because he can't be indicted. That's the official position of Mr. Mueller's bosses over there at the Department of Justice. That's number one. Number two, I keep hearing, well, what if he's subpoenaed to appear before the grand jury? Subpoenaed to appear before the grand jury. Well, then you go to the federal judge and you say to the federal judge, Your Honor, my client can't be indicted. That's the position of his bosses. So why is he going in front of a federal grand jury? Well, we need him as a witness. A witness to what? What criminal statute or what criminal violations do you think he was a witness to that he needs to testify to? Well, we think he may have committed obstruction. And even though we may not charge him, excuse me, Mr. Mueller, this is a criminal grand jury. This isn't being done so you can issue your report. So there are many constitutional obstacles, of course, to this argument that the president obstructed justice. So firing a subordinate is obstructing justice? That's absurd. If that's obstructing justice, then when Mr. Mueller fired Mr. Stroke, maybe that's obstruction of justice too, interfering with an investigation. What I'm saying is, when I watch people come on TV and say, well, he can be subpoenaed. Well, anybody can be subpoenaed. He's the president of the United States, and you damn well better have a strong reason for trying to drag him in front of a grand jury. That's number one. Number two, a federal judge is not going to just accept that kind of a spectacle, and Mr. Mueller knows it. That's why they're trying to negotiate and reach some kind of a deal. You're going to drag a president who's dealing with all these issues all over the world, who's dealing with China and Russia and North Korea and Iran and so forth and so on, and bring him in front of a grand jury? A judge is not going to want that kind of a constitutional crisis. That's why Mr. Mueller's trying to negotiate some basis to interview Mr. Trump. But if I were Mr. Trump, I'd say, you know what? I didn't do anything wrong, and that's exactly why I'm not talking to you. That's number one. I'm going to protect this office for Democrats and Republicans who are elected president of the United States. That's number two. And you have crimes that you want to prosecute? Go for it, baby. But I didn't commit a crime. I'm not going to be indicted. I'm not going to be dragged in front of a federal grand jury, and that's that. That's what the president should say.
Let me ask you this next question, because I think this is key. And there's been very few of us that have done this deep dive into this, I would argue, corrupt team that Robert Mueller's put together. Everyone can say he is beyond reproach. Well, I look at his handling in the anthrax case post 9/11. I look at, the case when he was in Boston as it relates to Whitey Bulger. 4 innocent people went to jail, $100+ million settlement. 2 of those guys, 2 of the 4 died in jail. Then you got this guy, Andrew Weissman. The New York Times calls him Mueller's pit bull. Okay, that's a guy that, as a result of his actions, twice was excoriated by judges for withholding exculpatory evidence. Tens of thousands of jobs were lost at Anderson Accounting for no reason at all. Right. Overturned 9-0 in the Supreme Court. You and I both know that doesn't happen a lot. And a guy that sent 4 Merrill executives to jail, Mark, 4 for a year, and that was overturned by the Fifth Circuit. Wait a minute. Why would Robert Mueller, with his background, be appointing only Obama, only Hillary, only DNC donors, and corrupt people like Weissman to his team to be his pit bull?
And why are the Democrats so keen on him? And why are the media so keen on him? And there's lots of leaks coming out of that operation, too. Among them, to the Washington Post the other day, is he wants to put a report out by June or July where they're probably going to suggest the President of the United States committed obstruction of justice. Not only is that outrageous, to the extent he does a report, it's supposed to be to the Deputy Attorney General on the crimes he's found or the crimes he's prosecuting. He's not supposed to give opinions. Let's be clear about something. The media treat this guy like he's a judge. He's not a judge. He's a prosecutor. And there's 2 sides to every argument. That's number 1. Number 2, he's going to put out a report accusing the President of the United States of obstruction of justice, when in fact that means that the President of the United States will be accused of obstruction of justice for impeachment purposes. That leak should tell the President of the United States everything he needs to know, which is that Mueller is out to destroy him. He's out to write a report to give it to the Democrats in the House of Representatives.
We only have a little over a minute left, and I would argue he would be stepping right into a perjury trap if there's no underlying crime, and they can't indict the president.
Defend the office of the presidency and defend yourself.
Well said. That's why we call you the Great One. Rod Rosenstein, he shouldn't even be in this position, number 1. Number 2, isn't he conflicted out if he's the number 1 witness as it relates to obstruction with Comey because he wrote a letter recommending such, and in fact he signed on to this, extended this FISA warrant himself, knowing that this was bought and paid for Hillary propaganda, Russian lies, and then appoints Mueller? How does he get away with that conflict? How does he how do you see him in all this?
I see him as very bizarre and really out of line. In addition to everything you've said, we now know that when Mueller went into Mr. Manafort's apartment at 5 or 6 in the morning, when he and his wife were in bed with the FBI's with their guns drawn, he got a warrant from a federal judge. When he went in there, gathered information, and then he goes to the Deputy Attorney General a week later to have his authority expanded to cover what he had just done a week before. So Mr. Rosenstein expands his authority to cover the tracks for Mueller, who was doing things he shouldn't have done. And the reason why this is important, America, is this. Mr. Rosenstein is not the Attorney General of the United States.
Well said.
And he's acting like it.
All right, Sunday night, 10 p.m., Life, Liberty, Levin. Governor Palin will be Mark's guest, and you don't want to miss it. I'm watching every week. Thank you, Great One. Appreciate it. When we come back, incredible ugliness from the left. You won't believe what they're saying about President Trump, Republicans. This crosses even a new line. Newt Gingrich is next. Straight ahead.